Well, Lucasfilm is feeling a little better. You might find that hard to believe. How in the world can Kathleen Kennedy's crew feel any better given their current situation? The Mandalorian Season 3 has been largely panned. Nobody believes their movies are even coming out. And yet, in contrast to Marvel, they're feeling mighty fine. That's right, the folks over at Lucasfilm think that Marvel is in such trouble that perhaps it has released the pressure valve on them, and the eyes of Disney are indeed over on Kevin Feige instead. But guess what? Lucasfilm is not done there. They think they have a master plan, allegedly, to draw back fans, and we're going to be discussing it right here, right now. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome back to another exciting video. We are explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of that culture curve so you can tell all your friends, hey, I knew that was going to happen. Hey, I knew that was going to happen. And then they can say, no, you didn't. But you will. It'll be true because you watch this channel. And if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about that notification bell. Joining us for this exciting run-through of Lucasfilm and all the latest rumors and allegations over there, we have an expert panel gathered together. Lauren Connor of That Park Place, the guru of all things Star Wars. We have Paul Chatto down in the bottom left. He is an expert in everything TV and entertainment for decades even.
Oh, yeah.
And in the bottom right, we have Force of Light. Michelle is joining us, an all-star and guru, just like Lauren, when it comes to all things Star Wars.
Good to be here.
All right, well, let's dive straight into the topic today, it being what is going on over at Lucasfilm. They have quite the conundrum. You see, folks, what has happened is that they put out a little movie, just a small indie film, I hear, over the weekend, the 40th anniversary celebration of Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Not The Last Jedi. That's a completely different and horrible film. But Return of the Jedi came out, and it was the #1 movie at the box office. No, not in terms of total gross coming in, not gross as in ew yuck, but gross as in total money. But rather it was #1 per theater. That means that for each theater it appeared in, it made more money for each screen than any other film, even topping the Super Mario Brothers movie, which is doing phenomenally well. Return of the Jedi, as per the numbers, topped the $10,000 mark per theater at $10,738. And that is even despite the fact that Lucasfilm essentially did no marketing for this film. Even Star Wars fans did not know that this was coming out, did not realize that they could see Luke in all of his glory return to the big screen. Now, Paul, we were talking before the video began about your experience knowing that Star Wars was going to be a big thing. I don't know if you went and saw this movie again this weekend, but you've seen it before and have distinct memories of going to see it and the other Star Wars films from the original trilogy when they were in theaters. Talk to us for a minute about why you think that these films still resonate, even to the point that they can take the top spot in terms of per screen gross income.
Well, a couple of things. This has been done before. George Lucas, when he brought out #1, #2, and #3, the prequels, the theaters were mandated to show the 4, 5, and 6. If the theaters refused to show 4, 5, and 6 in the theaters, then they wouldn't get 1, 2, and 3. So he was a bit of a nasty knob in his day. He wielded his saber, you could say, for evil rather than
saber,
good.
eh? Now, what about Star Wars? Yes, I'm trying to throw A's in for you. We're trying to understand each other.
But those were all Star Wars, right? I mean, but the first movie, I can't remember what the movie I was watching was, but I saw the trailer for this, and at the time, it wasn't even really thought of as any kind of future hit. But I remember the theater exploding for the trailer in a way that I rarely have I seen, and it bang immediately as soon as you saw it, you knew this is going to be massive. Even though the press out there, prior to it being released, didn't really give it much credence. But
even to this day, though, it's still doing the same thing somehow. This is a movie that is
this is the second movie, which was the best of all of them, And no,
Well, this is the third. This is the third. So there's the
Oh,
A New
sorry.
Hope. Then there is Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi.
that's how.
This being the third, the one that
what
some
an
people don't
expert
like because
I
of
am. I knew it
Ewoks.
was not the second.
But why do you think the characters? You are an expert when it comes to the characters for sure, and on writing good narrative. Why do you think the characters such as Luke and Darth Vader? Why do these resonate? Whereas the new characters they've developed over at Disney seem to just not stick in the same way.
So there's a couple of things that I've talked about, especially as it relates to the Disney versions, is that the first movie, because I know the business, a lot of that is going to be an accident. You assemble a bunch of stuff, you put it together, there's all sorts of grief, and it's amazing. I mean, it's like giving birth to a baby, and a lot of screaming. And a lot of drugs, and
hopefully no epidurals.
We won't get into that. But yes, an episiotomy. So it came out and it became successful. Then subsequently, they now had a better idea of what the audience liked and what was working in the movie. People don't really know that with the very first product. So I always fight this idea that there's some kind of plan or whatever. No, there's an awful lot of shock with, the very first film when they did Rambo, the first Rambo movie. They didn't make that as part of a franchise. It comes out, it's popular. I'm going to make more, right?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what Star Wars was about, except George Lucas did write, I believe, outlines for the first six movies anyway. So he kind of knew where he wanted all of them to go. And legend has it that he started with number 4 because that one had the smallest amount of budget required to make it. So I don't know whether it's true or not, but that's why he started with number 4. So at number 1, one of the things that the Lucas Star Wars versions did was the relationship between Leia, Luke, and Han was just fantastic. I mean, these were a key
point later in this video, by the way.
They were friends, and that's what you loved about the movie. And that's one of the things that they didn't do in the Disney movies, is that they just spent an awful lot of time keeping those 3 people separate, which I never really understood. So how are you going to bond with these 3 if they're not in adventures together? Mm-hmm. So
and then it was awkward when they came together in the final film of the Disney trilogy.
Bodega's character was pining over her like some simp. It was like, it was horrible. So that, why not follow the same formula and keep these 3 people together, fighting together, supporting each other? And that just didn't happen in the Disney trilogy. The other thing that Lucas did that was completely left out of J.J. Abrams' movie and all the other ones is you have to understand that Lucas was into gear porn. So both from a technical side, in terms of showing off in every single movie what he and his crew thought of to push the technology in the film forward. By the time J.J. Abrams did his film, pretty much a lot of this 3D stuff had been figured out. It's been used for tons of other films. And so it's just being used like Kleenex. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't appreciated, and I mean, it looked great, looked better than any other Star Wars movie to some degree, but that's not what Lucas did. Lucas actually, in every single movie, made a big deal of the technology that he used, and there'd be little shorts and movies and stuff about how he built it. The other thing that he did was always took you to a new planet, and he always showed you a new race. Apart from the middle film, which shall not be named in the Disney trilogy, they showed the planet with the red bits and pieces, but it wasn't really anything like what Lucas did.
It didn't feel like a real adventure then. You weren't going to new places, seeing new things.
Yeah, and that's one of the key things that Lucas did, like Flash Gordon of its era. You'd get the wipe and suddenly you're on this, Ming's planet of death or something like that, right? These things were fun. You had fun with these these locations and these aliens, and the Disney people had no fun. There was no fun in any of the movies. So those are the big things that those of us who nerded out on the initial Star Wars was we read everything we could about the moving cameras and the models. We wanted our own giant models of these things. What of anything did we want from the Disney trilogy? Certainly not that stupid lightsaber with the burning hilt where, if you miss, you're, oh, my hand. Like, who the came up with that? Sorry. Anyways, so there was just so much wrong that the Disney trilogy just did not understand what the core tenets were of the Lucas. Even the first, the 1, 2, and 3, he was world building. You could complain about aspects of the film, but holy smokes, he just totally gave everybody every piece they needed to continue the Star Wars saga based on, especially what he did in 1, 2, and 3. So anyways, there's my
fantastic points. Absolutely, Paul. Now, Michelle, going to that fun factor that he brings up, and I think is a key part to this. What do you think is still so fun that audiences, even to this day, even without marketing, even without advertising that this is going to happen, they're still there to watch this movie in droves? What is going on? What is so fun about it?
Yes, I think he hit on some very key points. It's about the characters. It's about the friendship and the bonds that they establish that is so long lasting. I took my niece to see Return of the Jedi this weekend. And again, I love Return of the Jedi's not, although I think it's a wonderful ending to that trilogy. Empire Strikes Back's my favorite of the trilogy. But I love the opening of Return of the Jedi because if you think about it, the whole first act they're going to rescue Han Solo. But let's pause that. There's a galactic war going on, and this group of friends has so made it their mission to find their friend and bust him out of this gangster's place. And that is what people love, that those friendship, those connection, the journey, the fun that they mix within this, that you just didn't have in the sequel trilogy. You don't have these connections. And in fact, I've said I'm a huge Stranger Things fan, and the Duffer Brothers clearly were huge Lucas fans. And I think they've done a better job than Disney of forming a gang of friends that you connect with, and you love this group of friends, and you want to go on this journey with them. And I think
it feels like you're a part of the group, right? You're like the unspoken voyager going along with the group of friends. You're in the group of friends, even though you're not necessarily participating in the action.
Absolutely.
Is that how you feel?
Yes, that's a great way to say it. So when you go to this movie, you're going to join your friends at the theater, basically.
Excellent, excellent. Now, Lauren, Paul also was talking about the gear, right? The ships, the destroyers, the ATs, everything that's involved in Star Wars. What do you miss in terms of the new stuff, the new explorations of tech and planets in terms of Star Wars? And is there anybody out there doing anything with the galaxy far, far away that still introduces new stuff that we haven't experienced before?
Well, I think the contrast that Paul brought up is really great, because the original movies, what they had was this chemistry with the characters, like he said. What they were doing with the sequel trilogy was mimicking Lucas's style. So you could see camera movements and framings of shots that were like, you wouldn't know that wasn't Lucas if somebody hadn't told you, but the movie itself was soulless. Now, I think they did have a couple of characters with chemistry. I thought the chemistry between Poe and Finn was excellent. I could have watched a whole trilogy of movies about those two guys going on their buddy cop style adventures if they were going to do something like that. But Poe wasn't intended to survive past The Force Awakens, and then had such a good time that they decided to continue writing him into it, much to his chagrin, I think. And then when Ryan got there, he didn't like the idea of Finn being the romantic interest. He wanted to put in his insert character, which was Rose Tico. And so he put those two together and sent them off on some other direction and derailed the whole thing. That's before you start worrying about all the background plot details. When it comes to expanding the planets and things like that, it is kind of hard to keep doing that because Lucas was always dealing with single environment kind of planets. He had to get away from that a little bit in the prequel trilogy, or at least get a little more outlandish with each new planet that he introduced. But there's always ways to introduce new gear and tech. And that's something that I think in the old days of Lucas, before Disney took over, they did a lot of that stuff in games and comic books and things like that. And if something was popular, next thing you knew, Lego was making a set of it, or somebody was producing a toy. It all kind of fed on all of the different aspects of the franchise. Disney seems to prefer to just mandate, we're going to do this, we're only going to do this, it's going to be done our way, to our blueprint, whether you like it or not. And we're going to do so much of it that you're going to like it eventually. And if you don't, that's your problem.
Good points all. I do want to get into what a source has sent me in terms of why we believe that leaks are happening out of Lucasfilm at a heightened level. One of the things that's being told to me by a source that has been correct on huge things in the past and continues to be correct is that we seem to have struck a nerve over at Lucasfilm when we used the term cobwebbed, referring to Luke Skywalker here on the channel. For those who have not seen the video, we talked about how apparently it was said to third-party partners of Lucasfilm and Disney that Luke Skywalker was going to be cobwebbed, not going to be used for anything other than cameos. And we talked about how those original characters are perceived to be able to sell merchandise, even if they're not part of any new material. And so we used the term cobwebbed. It was a very odd term. And apparently because that allegedly has been used over there in Lucasfilm, that really got some attention. It perked up some ears of people who have dealt with Lucasfilm and perhaps gave some veracity to what we were saying. And so here's some more on this topic that I find interesting, again, from one of those two sources that we chatted with to get that information previously. Here's what we've got. Source says, all these studios are leaky. People talk, they have opinions, that's no surprise, but realize that within a matrix like Disney, people are interested in what other departments, divisions, groups are doing. They like to compare themselves. Who is doing well? Where are the budgets going? Who's getting more investment? These politics are increased when job cuts are happening. And I want to focus on that, everybody. I think that's true, and I think that's why we're starting to get a lot of information out of some of these studios that previously were airtight. Politics are increased when job cuts are happening. Don't pretend for a second that the media telling you that the 7,000 job cuts are over at the beginning of the summer. We don't know that. We don't know if there are more job cuts in play. We have no idea, and neither do the people working in these studios. This even has a play in the relationship various studios have with partners. How much Marvel product versus how much Lucas product is being put out by a given partner? Who is getting more attention from the partner? How is Hasbro's Disney space carved up at Walmart? Why is quick serve partner A not doing Star Wars anymore but still doing Marvel? They are competitors, even though they exist under the same umbrella in many ways, obviously for consumer dollars, but people forget that they also are competing for much of the related upstream. Not only are there regular communications between Lucasfilm and partners, but managers from other divisions, Disney Corporation, Disney, Marvel, etc., are often communicating with these same partners. It's not breaking news. They talk about what they know about each other. They judge and badmouth each other more than you would think. Remember, budgets are getting cut, projects pushed out, etc. Sure, this is rank and file level interactions, but they know most of what's coming in the next year or two. No, most of the partners won't know if there are some Luke scenes being inserted in Ahsoka, but they will know the major happenings even in other studios. Closed doors only go so far. Think of, say, just opening in accounting as cost bills need to be paid for Project ABC, the questions that get asked before money is emitted. Code words and barrier companies are cute, but human nature wins out. If Lucasfilm thinks that their internal discussions are fully confidential, they are really dumb. All right, so I want to hand this over to Paul because you've worked in the industry. You have firsthand experience. Do you find this leaky? Is it Swiss cheese over there in entertainment? Do you guys talk about each other? I can't believe this is true.
Well, I was in TV, network TV.
Oh, that is a very serene place. Everyone is good and kind and benevolent.
Yeah, they are very. Everybody wants you to fail until you succeed, and then they want to be with you.
That's right.
So that's the rule. I would say what you've described is just Hollywood in general. I wouldn't say it's specific to Lucasfilm or
Sure,
Marvel.
that's the point.
Gossip is a very important currency in Hollywood. You hear it all the time. So, yeah, I mean, I think your assessment in terms of people being jealous of what other people are doing in each department, yeah, that's absolutely correct. It gets worse if you're let's say, a production manager on a particular product that is failing. There's no worse feeling than that, because you get the meetings in the boardroom with all the directors,
And suddenly they want to tell you how to fix it, even though they couldn't tell you what to do in the first place that would have solved this problem.
a lot of silence, actually.
Silence is unpleasant.
More they don't want to talk to you, and it's really uncomfortable. It's one of the things that you learn is, even though you've got your own project, you become part of the body politic. And if one person who's like well-known and vaguely competent, and things are bad through for whatever reason, it almost feels like your own problem. Like it's just not helpful. Everyone
do you think this is amplified by the fact that Disney is cutting jobs? Everybody knows Disney is not in a good place.
Oh, well, listen, I was at the CBC when they canned 1,200 jobs, and I was on the floor of where most of the job losses took place in Toronto. And I didn't lose my job, but I had people wanting to come into my office and just cry.
That's not a good place to be.
No, it was very difficult. I was kind of unhappy that the higher ups didn't come down and just took it on the chin, and they just sort of ran away. And I was the one who not decided. I was unfortunately, I won't say unfortunately, I enjoyed listening to them. I felt it was the right thing to do as a human being, as a manager. I think it made them feel better that at least a person with responsibility, spent some time listening to them. So
but you treated them with dignity.
Yeah, which does not help. That and that rarely happens in the business.
So going to this dignity idea then, Michelle, Lucasfilm has been under tremendous scrutiny. We, as commentators, we often are highly critical of them for obvious reasons, although when they do well, we're happy to say so. Do you think it's starting to get to them over there? Clearly, this Return of the Jedi doing well is like a double-edged sword for them. On the one hand, it's great to see your content so beloved. On the other hand, it's content that you have loathed ever since Disney picked you up, and yet it's still popular and you are not. So what do you make of it?
Yeah, I would almost wonder like whose idea it was. Because even the way they did it was kind of random. Like Return of the Jedi came out on May 25th, 1983. It did not come out in April. So they picked like a very random weekend, the last weekend of April, just to kind of throw it in there. And it's like the smart move would have been either Disney's very well marketed May the 4th, and maybe they didn't want to compete with Guardians, but I mean, come on. But
I can tell you what's going on there.
Yes, or
The Little Mermaid comes out May 26th. There's no way they're going to let Return of the Jedi beat their Mermaid.
Yes, but that would have been smart. And even though it's competing, all the money goes. It's Disney at this end of the day.
But they're terrified of that mermaid going belly up at this point. Have you seen Flounder? It's not pretty. It's not pretty.
Yeah, nothing looks that pretty with it. But yeah, so I think I'd be interested. Was this Kathleen's idea? Was she kind of forced to do it? Because it just kind of feels like they
makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense.
It doesn't.
And I'll tell you, I think they got stuck in a corner. I'll hand it to Lauren. I think they were stuck in a corner because they did this for the other two films. Lauren, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. They did it for A New Hope. They did it for The Empire Strikes Back. It would be conspicuous if they didn't do it for Return of the Jedi. At the same time, they didn't want to make a big deal out of it. They didn't want people to really know about it, I don't think. I know it's not in all markets. It's not in mine, so I didn't get to go see
No,
it.
it's not here.
Yeah, I think it's in a relatively small number of
Mhm.
locations. They can say, "Well, we told you about it because we've mentioned it at Celebration," but I think it was more a formality than anything else.
Mhm.
Agreed. Well, let's get to the big rumor. Let's get to the spicy part of this. What everybody's been waiting pins and needles to find out. What is the latest rumor from Pro? Will it turn out to be true? Will it be like the Ray movie? Will it be something else? Well, here's what it is, folks.
Okay.
According to a source that I have in Lucasfilm, and I am not given great specificity on this rumor, simply because I don't think they want to put that out there and put themselves at risk. But what I'm told is that in regards to a Dave Filoni project, and I don't know which one, apparently Lucasfilm believes that they should put the original three characters, the big ones, right? Luke, Leia, and Han, together for a cameo. And what's being told to me is that apparently people at Lucasfilm believe that if they put this in one of these Dave Filoni projects, I don't know if it's Ahsoka, I don't know if it's the Mandoverse movie or whatever it is, but if they put that in there, they can placate both sides, they can make everybody happy, and they can boost the ratings, boost the box office if it's the movie, but they can boost the excitement around this simply by putting them in there. And even if it is a mediocre project, let's say, it will be lifted by those three. And they think that that might repair some of the damage to the sequel trilogy and what it's done to the fan base. Now, we've been going in the opposite direction. Let me take it this way and go back to Lorne. Lorne, what do you think in terms of, and well, let me say this. I need to say this too. The way that this source found this out is apparently there's work going on to begin facilitating how this will happen, because it's not easy to do. One person has passed away, two people are not. Do you use old footage somehow that because, for example, they had Harrison Ford come in during Indiana Jones and do a brief shooting as Han Solo older? They didn't use that footage. Do you go with artificial intelligence to recreate Harrison Ford's voice? All of this stuff has to be planned out far in advance. So, Lorne, what do you think? Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? They're still cobwebbed. They still just make cameos, and I find that bewildering. They could be, instead of Young Jedi Adventures, they could be making the original Star Wars characters in CGI for kids or whoever, but they're still just getting a cameo. But is this a step in the positive direction? I don't have a strong position on this yet. What do you think?
So what's interesting to me about this is actually you're not the first person I've heard this from. I heard this rumor 1 or 2 days ago, and I don't remember where it was that I saw it or heard it.
Well, I wish you would tell me, because that is amazing.
Well, it was one of those things where I know I was just browsing somewhere and I happened to see it. I don't remember where it was, but I didn't put a lot of I didn't put a lot of stock into it because of what we'd already heard about Luke being cobwebbed, and because the way it was framed was that what they were discussing was having a scene where they all reunite, but likely sort of just seeing them in the background, not having them be a major presence in whatever appearance that they make. And
well, that adds up so far.
It was framed the same way, that this was mainly a way to get complainers to shut up about the fact that they hadn't been seen reunited, so that they want to quiet that part of the fan base that's complaining about it. If that's the case, if they are planning on doing this, I understand what they're trying to do, but I think it's going to backfire on them. You're going to get the same thing that you got with Luke when you brought him in season 2 of The Mandalorian. Now you've given the audience a portion of what they want, but they don't want them to be just background characters who appear so that you can say that they did. They want them to have a significant part that shows the epilogue of what happens after the Empire is defeated. What needed to happen in that post-Return of the Jedi period was a coda. It was an epilogue that shows, okay, your heroes have now gone off and had a happy life afterwards. Now a new conflict takes place that a new generation has to take up the torch and move it forward going there. They didn't get that coda. That's why they're unhappy.
I see, and great points. Michelle, do you take Lauren's side on this, where perhaps this is like being shown a delicious steak at a nice restaurant, and then it's taken away, and you get the Vienna sausages? What do you think?
Okay, well, first, I absolutely can see this being true in Dave Filoni's project, considering his project is leading up to this big conflict with Thrawn. So he would bring the three of them in to kind of tie in for EU fans, kind of his little version.
Do you think he would do that respectfully, and do you think he would do it in a way that would please George Lucas and those who love the George Lucas side of Star Wars?
I do think, even though I don't think Filoni does everything perfect, I do think he would be respectful in how he handled those three characters. But then I also agree with Lauren that just like some small appearance isn't going to do it anymore. And then if you give him like a good appearance, like you did with Luke in Mando season 2, it makes people want more, and then they don't seem to ever want to give us that. So I think it's both. I can see Filoni bringing it in for that purpose, kind of tie in kind of the EU storyline. And then I do think he will be respectful. But then I don't think it's just going to make... And at this point, they've so damaged and hurt their diehard fans that I don't even think they care. They'd be like, it's not really them anyways. We don't care.
Right. They would claim this is the zombification of Star Wars or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul, I'm going to ask you the big question then.
Okay.
The big
I'm
question.
Ready.
Oh, here
I'm
we
ready.
go.
Go for it.
Explain this strategy to me that we have watched time and time again out of both Marvel and Lucasfilm. That being, you don't give the consumer what the consumer clearly wants. I don't understand this strategy. What's going on where they assume they know better than the market?
It depends on whether you want to include the Disney trilogy as part of the cultural revolutionist takeover. I'm not entirely certain it is, although it kind of fits the mold in that if you go into the mindset of our present day cultural revolutionists, history is bad. Old is bad. The past is bad. So this is why you're seeing such wretched product out there on multiple levels, especially with the new Marvel. In the case of, this is my speculation, is that Kathleen Kennedy hated Luke Skywalker so much because she had a vision for the Force is female, and he was such a important character that she made the giant blunder of, rather than letting the three of them, Han, Luke, and Leia, have a great final blowout, and so like what Lauren was talking about, an epilogue even, or like give them the entire the Force Awakens film, and then be done with it, like ripping off a bandage, and don't dispense with Han in such a pathetic, horrible, dreadful way, with no, even boxes of Kleenex, people crying. We didn't even
visiting them
that.
at the Galactic Nursing Home would have been better.
Would have been better. So
he can go out. He can go out. He just needs to go out as a hero.
Correct.
He needs to go out defending his friends and family.
And even Luke, we needed to have a galactic level final battle. And I wouldn't have cared if he died.
He died of force constipation, which, by the way, is galactic in the pain that it brings, I hear.
So the irony is Kathleen Kennedy's absolute hatred for these characters and seemingly actual hatred for everything George built, and it seemed like she wanted to destroy it all. She is who's the character in Lord of the Rings that spoke into Eowyn's dad's ear?
Wormtongue.
Yeah, Wormtongue. She was the Wormtongue of Lucasfilm. Anyway, so
we're using that from now on, folks. Wormtongue has become the phrase now when you're led astray.
And the irony is that rather than really letting all these characters she hated go out on in a big, in glorious fashion, they've now lingered far worse than she could have ever imagined.
Mhm.
So to me, this is just incompetence, lack of vision, and just managerial incompetence.
There you go. Incompetence can lead to force incontinence. Well, folks, it looks like Star Wars is going to continue muddling forward. Hopefully, they'll find somebody to take care of it, care about these characters, but instead, for the time being, we may just get cobwebbed cameos. I want to say thank you to all of our esteemed guests who have been here today. Make sure to go click on their links, find their content, subscribe to their channels. Those links are in the description down below the video. You are going to want to check out their phenomenal stuff that they have out there on this great, big, beautiful web. Also, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about the notification bell. We covet your comments, so drop one down below. This is not a conversation between just 4 people. No, it is all of us, this vast community of people joining in on this video, you all included. So tell us what you think, and wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.